Hello, and thank you very much for joining us on UPfront. So, our focus today is on the integrated customs management system. So many of you've actually called it UNIPAS because the UNIPAS is the one managing it. So in March 2018, Ghana Link Network Services Limited, in collaboration with the Customs UNIPAS International Agency of Korea, was contracted by the Ministry of Trade and Industry to introduce UNIPAS port systems to Ghana. So after the introduction, there's been lots of issues about it, lots of comments about it, and so today we want to understand everything. Of course, I know some of you have issues to do with the politics about it, but our focus today is on the operationalization of it. Now, since it started on the 1st of April in Takoradi, for instance, some of the freight forwarders have complained. They believe that it is not the best, and that they could actually have improved it. So we're asking a few questions. What sort of testing systems or piloting systems were put in place? And my guest is the chairman of the implementation committee of the Integrated Customs Management Service. That's ICOM's Gilbert Ohene. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ohene. I believe you're doing very well.
I'm very well, fine, thank you.
Great, so let's start. Let's get straight into the conversation and help us understand. So what was wrong with the previous system being implemented by GCNet and West Blue, necessitating us to contract UNIPAS to manage our port systems for us?
Let me say good evening to our cherished viewers. I'd like to start by saying that the government of Ghana, as you rightly said, engaged the services of a private entity to develop and implement a single service provider to bring out an end-to-end automated customs operational and management system. Now, the emphasis is on the single service provider and the end-to-end.
Why is the emphasis on the single service provider and the end-to-end?
Okay, in the current incumbent systems we have, in order to assure one of a clearance of any cargo, one needed to run through multiple systems, and I could enumerate them in this following order. You would first of all need to submit your electronic documents through what you call the pre-arrival assessment reporting system, which is handled by one private entity known as West Blue. And in doing so, you need, if you were clearing items that needed licenses or permits or exemptions, you had to go through the EMDA portal, which was run by GCNet.
Okay.
Again, if you needed to submit the manifest, by the shipping lines, which is the first control document for any customs activity, you had the GIGS, which was also managed by GCNet. And then in processing the customs bill of entry, which is the documentation concerning a clearance, you need to route that as well through the GCMS, which is managed by the GCNet. And then for the examination of cargo as well at the port, you needed to have a system called JIMIS, the Joint Inspection Management Information Systems, run by West Blue, before it went back into the customs management system run by GCNet for release. Now, if one needed to transit goods from one port of Ghana to another exit point, the tracking units were managed by GCNet. If you were warehousing goods and you needed to move your goods from the port to the warehouse, or you are re-exporting your commodities from a warehouse to the frontier, you needed to have the tracking device run by another company called Magnet Technology. In issues of valuation, for valuation assurances, you had another company called Cargo Tracking Note. And so we had multiple stakeholders in the clearance chain. And I believe in the wisdom of government, it was deemed prudent to have one service provider provide an end-to-end system.
So these
facilitate the clearance of goods.
so these multiple systems that we had, were they in any way affecting the business of clearing goods at the ports?
In some instances, yes.
How?
You have multiple independent IT systems running, independently of each other. And in some instances, for issues of integration or interfacing, we encountered difficulties.
What difficulties did you encounter?
Systems not being able to speak to each other. And that would necessarily, cause delays. So these are issues that, we had, some challenges with. At the initial stages, there were issues of, friction between the respective service providers, and these were not beneficial to the clearance processes at the ports.
Is it something as managers of the port you identified, or was a complaint by users of the port?
There were very obvious issues that, were obvious to not only the users of the port, but to the managers of the ports as well as government.
So my question is very direct.
Yes.
I'm asking whether it was something that you identified as managers of the port, or the users of the port came to complain to you.
And I am saying that it was identified by all the parties as stakeholders involved in the port activity.
So the users, including the freight forwarders, complained about these things to you?
Certainly, and their customs as well. And these complaints would obviously be laid at the doorstep of government.
And the same persons who complained were against the coming into force of this particular company to make things smooth. Since you're saying that they had complained, how would that ever happen?
I am not very certain that the same persons were against the introduction of the Unipass. Indeed, we have had, some pockets of discontent, but at the same time also, we've had some of the freight forwarders in full support of the deployment of the Unipass. So it's not an issue where we have, everybody speaking against the introduction of the Unipass.
So basically, these difficulties that you identified led to changing it. Couldn't that have been resolved?
I did not just end about those difficulties alone. The issues of improvement in our systems were also identified by the government. The Unipass system that has been put together by our vendors has come with some obvious benefits, which we could explore in the course of our discourse.
What benefits does it come with?
Okay, the first I mentioned was the issue of having an end-to-end service system, an end-to-end system. In the Unipass processes, the whole process is a one-stop shop. So you start your process in the Unipass, you do not deviate into another system, and you continue in the Unipass till you come to the final release of your goods. Okay, so that is the first benefit I'd like to talk about. Again, we have instances where you have one single account user that has access to all the engagements one wants to undertake in the system. Previously, if you were to apply for a license or a permit, each of those permits had to be accessed in the EMD. When I say EMD, it means the Electronic Ministry Departments and Agencies platform.
Okay.
You would need to make multiple applications, okay, in order to apply for your licenses or permits. But the Unipass system provides one single application which you can now use to fulfill all the licensing concessions and permits that one will require from the system. Again, when you look at the issues of classification and valuation, I mentioned earlier that with the Unipass system, one single account gives you access to the complete process. Hitherto, if you want to take a delivery of cargo at the port, you needed to route your electronic documents first through the PARS, okay? And then you are issued with a classification and a valuation report. Before you process the customs declaration or bill of entry in the GCNet or GCMS, and then you go for examination in another system. Now the issue of classification and valuation and all the attendant processes, you conduct all these businesses with only one bill of entry.
Okay.
So the multiplicity of running through a system is completely avoided. So once you have submitted your declaration in the system, the BOE in the system generates the classification and valuation, and then a quality assurance which enables you to pay if you do not intend to object the classification and valuation position. And these are not things that we had in the incumbent systems. Again, with incumbent systems, every time the exchange rate had to be changed, one needed to do what you call a post-entry to reflect the current exchange rate. In the new system, this is completely missing.
Okay.
What I'd like to even add before we go further is that the ICOMS is government owned. Okay, we have been privy to know that the GCNet and the other agencies are not wholly owned by the government of Ghana, but the information we have is that the UNIPAS or ICOMS is a wholly owned Ghanaian entity.
But you've contracted Customs of Korea to help you implement that. Since yes, you want to make a point?
No, I'm listening to you.
Since you've brought the ownership of it in, what is the stake of Customs of Korea in all of this? And what stake does Ghana Link also have in all of this?
Okay, the issues I can tell you in that regard is Korea Customs Service has an international agency which is responsible for the deployment of the system that the Korean service uses. What it means is that the Korean Customs Service put together a consortium of consultants who represent the Korean Customs Service in deploying UNIPAS across the nations of the world. Okay, so UNIPAS Kupia is an offshoot of the Korean Customs Service, and they were contracted by a private vendor to help to develop and implement the UNIPAS in Ghana.
So they were contracted by a private vendor with what stake in it?
The private vendors have taken contracts together with the they have put together a package with the UNIPAS team known as Kupia. Okay, I am not in a position now to give you the full details of the stakes that are in it.
No, because you've said, well, this is owned by Ghana, and I'm asking you to give me the details of it.
Well, the explanation I can give is that
yes,
the government, in order to eventually fully own a system that we can say is for the government of Ghana, has undertaken this arrangement. I will not be able to give you all the full details of the arrangement, but that is how the engagements have been.
But at least you are the chairman of the implementation team. You're privy to some information, and so you should be able to tell us.
I would wish that we would not have to speak to the full details to that.
But you brought it anyways. I mean, you brought it. But I'll get back to that. But I'll get back to that particular issue. Now, you made a point about how the process are very, going on smoothly. I don't know if you've seen the situation report on the deployment of UNIPA's integrated customs management systems, on from the 1st of April. This is by freight forwarders in Sekeni Takrady. I don't know whether you've seen the report.
I have seen a report.
You've seen a report?
I don't know if it's the same report that you have in your possession.
Okay, so the report says that the object is to bring to the fore issues of inadequate training, simile and sequenced process flow, and operational challenges. And if you get to page 2 of the report, so since you were talking about valuation and classification, so it says there's a pre-entry situation which affords one the opportunity to request pre-arrival processes, that is valuation and classification. This process takes forever. We have screenshots of different transactions, and the timestamps in there tell the story. There are a plethora of declarations that began on the 9th of April, and as of the 24th of April, the process is still not complete. In one particular instance, although the clearance has been done, the system is still showing examination officer rather than delivery allowed. Has this challenge come to your notice?
Yes. Yes, we have to be the first to admit that with the introduction of the let me first give a prelude to how this started. We started the deployment in 3 phases. Okay, the first phase was to tackle the frontier stations, which were Aflao and under Aflao some satellite offices, and the phase 1 ran concurrently from Aflao to the Upper East, Bolga, Paga, Kolungugu, and then to Wa, Hamile, Tamale itself, and then Sunyani. Under Sunyani we had Kofibedu Krom and Gondo Krom, then we had Elubo, and then we had Kumase and Kuforidia, and then Ho as well. I forgot to mention Ho. Now the second phase had to do with Takrade, and we rolled out the second phase in Takrade, just like you rightly said, on the 1st of May. Indeed, it has come with its attendant challenges, but in all of these things, we have been bold enough to address most of the challenges as they have come. Some of the issues you have raised and highlighted, indeed, have happened. But with some, it has come about as a result of the, should I say, the freight forwarders and the other stakeholders, even including customs officers, not appreciating the processes that they have been put through. And some of it is through no fault of theirs, because most of us are not very comfortable with change. Okay? And so there have been very many instances where to dot an I or an O, we've had some of these challenges. There are others too that have had to come about because some misunderstanding about the new process flows were not very clear to them. That notwithstanding, a lot of the challenges that have been highlighted here, as I speak with you, they have been addressed. Some are also still, being addressed. But the issues that, raised great concern had to do with evaluation and classification. And these issues came about shortly after the period of the COVID-19 lockdown. Okay? And in order to address that, we had to now deploy more officers and provide them with tools to even work from home in order to, lessen the burden that the importers were going through with complaints about delays at the Technical Services Bureau.
Okay, so talking about the challenges that you've dealt with now, this is something that was prepared on the 27th of April. So a week ago, this was prepared. It actually classified the system as not user-friendly. In fact, if you look at point 7, it says the system is simply not user-friendly. Declaration is back and forth and not a step-by-step process. Post entries are a nightmare. Interestingly, this pushes the declarants to proceed physically to the operations center at the Grand Favor Hotel in Takrade. This is something that you put in place to ensure that persons who use the ports are able to go about clearing of goods and services without any challenges. But the situation on the ground tells us a different story. If that is the case, did you pilot it? And what were the challenges you found in association with the piloting? How did you deal with those challenges?
We, as explained earlier, we had the phase that was, the first phase, which was run across the frontiers as a semblance of piloting, so that we could appreciate the system and how the deployment would be eventually when we rolled it out in Takoradi. Indeed, we encountered some of the challenges that have been mentioned right from the onset, but as it was being rolled out, we were able to address them in a timeous manner. Now, with the instances in Takoradi, where some of these challenges have been highlighted, without making excuses, I would say that we were able to identify some of the problems not originating or emanating from the system. But as I said earlier, we have multiple stakeholders in the chain, and in some instances, some of the stakeholders' appreciation of the process flow was not very clear, even though they had been given training. But we had to accommodate that simply because it was a new system that we were introducing, and so we were not averse to the fact that these challenges would occur along the way.
So, have these challenges been dealt with?
A lot of them have been dealt with.
Have all of them been dealt with?
I cannot say that for sure.
You cannot say that for sure.
But I can tell you that they are receiving attention.
Okay, so let me just look at one other thing. We'll get into other issues, but there's also the talk of about the bill of entry, and it says that one major issue identified is that of valuation. There's a serious matter which we found runs across board. The original instruction was to upload evidence of valuation done prior to 1st April when creating the bill of entry. It is strange, however, that most of these values were ignored and revised mostly downwards, even to the chagrin of the declarants who feel this was an anomaly and constituted huge loss of revenue to the state, but could do nothing about it.
I'd like to explain that in the issues of valuation, the ICOM system runs a valuation system where we do no longer need the classification and valuation report. But at the beginning of the second phase in Takoradi, because some agents had already processed their classification and valuation reports, they were enjoined to attach them as evidence of having processed those values. And for some of the agents, they went ahead to not only attach the classification and valuation reports, but the issues of misunderstanding of how the system should be processed, even with classification and valuation, especially in the area of the production of the valuation report, they were not very clear about it. And as we proceeded, we were able to speak to those issues.
So now you've dealt with all those. Okay, you've admitted you've not dealt with all those issues, but I also do have, and since we're having a very good understanding of the system, so I have a letter from the Commissioner General, Acting Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, and this letter dated 24th April 2020 says, introduction of ICOMs in Ghana, and it says, GRA announces the commencement and deployment of the integrated customs management systems at all frontier stations and ports of entry in Ghana with effect from Tuesday 28th April 2020. It is recorded in line with the implementation plan for the eventual rollout of ICOMs nationwide. The deployment of the second phase commenced at Takoradi Port on 1st April. Earlier, phase 1 had started on 1st March at selected customs. We were told that, it was going to start on the 20th of April at Kotoka International Airport. So it continues that the following measures will apply. All existing declarations being processed in GCMS for which payment of taxes have not been effected by close of banking day 27 April 2020 will be required to be reprocessed in the ICOMS as a new bill of entry from 28th April 2020, and all declarations for permits and EMD approvals obtained before 28th April 2020, as well as penalties payable before and after August, would also get into ICOMS. Great. But it talks about existing ex-warehousing, free zones, and other suspense regimes declarations shall continue to be processed in GCNet, GCMS system. So is it a case that we're running a concurrent system currently until the other phase is out?
This letter is dated
24th April 2020.
I can tell you that the top management of GRA reviewed the letters along the way. I'm just trying to provide you with the last, letter, which I think was dated 28th or 29th of April, and it made reference to these other letters and indicated that the contents of the new letter were now applicable instead of these ones. But that, having said that, notwithstanding, the current incumbent vendors' systems are still functional.
What does that mean?
What I mean is that there is a parallel run.
And when will that parallel line end?
From the last letter that was signed by the Commissioner General, it was dated 31st May.
31st May. When was that letter signed?
It was signed either the 29th or 28th. I'm just trying to have a copy. I have it, but I just have missed it out.
Okay.
I have a copy of it. I'll make it available before we leave here.
Because this one was dated 24th, and it said it was going to run, concurrently until the 15th of May. But you're telling us that, subsequently, there's been another letter. So we're actually having a conversation about, the Unipass deal. Many of you have expressed concerns about, the operationalization of that. The freight forwarders have had lots of issues. Some of them have complained. They've actually asked questions. They've asked, how different is this from, the paperless port system? Let me get to you on that particular issue. So we know that there are a lot of, good aspects that came with the paperless port system. But even before we get to the paperless port system, okay, so with the ICOMS, how many declarations are dealt with daily or can be dealt with daily?
We have not fully deployed in Tema, but I can tell you that in Takrady we have deployed, and we're doing. Takrady is not a very major, port where we have a lot of activity. We're doing about 32, 35 averagely a day.
But in Tema, under the old system, how many declarations are we dealing with in a day?
That's huge. I will not want to hazard a guess now, but it's certainly more than 400.
More than 400?
Yes.
Because we're told the Unipass, system can actually deal with 1.8 million declarations in a day. Am I right?
I cannot speak to that.
You cannot speak to that. Because it's important to have an understanding if we've decided to, change from what we are currently running to a new one. We should know when it comes to.
We have an understanding that this is what it is, and it can do. We have not had the opportunity to run it through and through in the area of live situations. Yeah.
So but let me have this understanding, and then we'll get back to other issues. So the understanding you have is that it can perform certain functions. My understanding of your understanding is that if it can perform certain functions, you probably should know what those functions, because I'm just looking at the Unipass technology, and it says through the clearance systems, all custom business will be conducted in a paperless environment. When Unipass is fully deployed, export will take 1.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes, and import takes 1.5 hours. And this is the current standard in Korea.
Yes.
Will it be the same standard in Ghana?
That will be The Ghanaian situation is very peculiar, and UniPass has been customized to fit the Ghanaian environment. I'm not too sure we even have the volumes that Korea has running through our ports here.
Our volumes are less.
Certainly.
And so, let me just get this clarification, because if you look at their document also, there's a talk about how you can actually, deploy it partially. But we have decided to go for it fully, right?
The UniPass.
Yeah, the UniPass. You can deploy it partially, but we've decided to go for it fully.
We're looking at a deployment nationwide.
Nationwide.
But in phases.
And since you are chairman of the implementation committee, were you by chance told why we decided to go for a total deployment instead of a partial one?
No, I don't have that information.
What happened to the paperless port system? It was supposed to cure all the problems we had, majority of them, to make it smooth.
The paperless port system was actually introduced for the ports of Takoradi and Tema. And so its deployment is not nationwide. And indeed, it has had its modest, successes with the systems running, with little or minimum human intervention. Now, the ICOMS does not seek to erode the gains of the paperless system. It rather seeks to reinforce it and take it to another level.
How is it going to reinforce and take it to another level? Help me understand it.
Okay, the ICOMS also is a total paperless. It's also a total paperless process. And when I started earlier, I indicated that in the current system, you need to submit your electronic documents in one before it goes into another. Now, when you have one system running all the paperwork seamlessly, that gives you some comfort of efficiency or effectiveness, and that is what I am trying to bring to the table.
Yes, but I'm also trying to understand the effectiveness that you're talking about. So I know we have a system already which we said was very effective, a system which we said, by way of revenue, we had actually generated 8 billion in 2016. Then when the paperless system came in place, we generated some 12 billion Ghana cedis in 2017. By 2018, we had generated 13 billion. Of course, there was a reduction because of the decision by the Vice President on 3rd April 2019 to also reduce benchmark values by 50% and in some instances 30%. So there was a reduction in revenue. In fact, the Vice President in September 2017 talked about the successes of the paperless port systems and talked about how we had been able to generate lots of revenue compared to the previous years and how it was ensuring a smooth operation in our ports. Am I right?
Yes.
So that smooth operation that we're enjoying in our ports, how is that going to be I mean, why would we want to bring another system which we say is going to create a smooth one when we already have a smooth system operating in our ports, helping us with lots of revenue?
Without meaning to simplify it, one agent once said to me that if you have a black and white TV, which is functional, and you are in a position to obtain a color TV, what stops you? The idea of government is not to settle for less, but to look at opportunities of improving the way we do our businesses in the country. And so even though the paperless is smooth, if there is an opportunity to improve upon what is already existing, I think that it's a good initiative that should be encouraged.
Great. So my guest is Gilbert Ohene, and Gilbert Ohene is the chairman of the Project Implementation Committee of the Integrated Customs Management System. So many of you actually call it UniPass, and today we are getting a better understanding of it. So my checks indicate that yes, the government of Ghana contracted, Ghana Link as a 10-year management contract to manage the port of Tema. I mean, Ghana's entry points and ports. And so it's not as if we are owning, that particular one. They've been contracted to manage it for 10 years, and they brought in, the Korea Customs. You're able to confirm that?
Could you say that again?
I'm telling you that Ghana Link, I mean, the Ministry of Food and Industry contracted Ghana Link on a 10-year contract to actually manage revenue collection at our points of entries and our ports for 10 years. You're able to confirm that?
I can't confirm that.
You can't confirm that?
No. I will rather not hazard a guess in that regard.
What do you know?
As I explained to you earlier, I have, you know, the information that UNIPAS is eventually going to be fully owned by the government of Ghana.
After how many years?
That is all I can tell you about for now.
It becomes ours after 10 years?
And I'm just explaining that I'm not in a position to say that.
But you've just told us that it becomes owned by Ghana after some time.
I do not have the details of when it is fully owned by Ghana. Let me put it that way.
But you know that it will be fully owned by Ghana?
Yes.
So these concerns, and I recognize that when it started operating on the 28th, by 29th, 30th, West Blue had come in and said, well, so we are still operating. Per these letters that I have seen, they were supposed to have been running parallel systems. Did you engage them to run, or you asked them to shut down?
It is important that we make some things clear. GRA Customs is an agency of the government of Ghana, okay? And so we are guided by laws that govern our operations. What I can tell you is that on the 28th or 29th of April, a letter was sent to the incumbent vendors to continue running their system to the 31st of May.
Okay.
27th, or I think it was the 27th of April, a letter was sent to the incumbent agencies. The letter states that they could run parallel with the new system till the 31st of May 2020.
Okay, we need to go for a short break. My guest, Gilbert Ohene, who is the chairman of the Project Implementation Committee of the Integrated Customs Management System. Many of you call it UNIPAS. My name is Winston Amma. This is Upfront on JoyNews. There's more after this break. All right, so welcome back from that short break, and thank you very much for staying with us. This is Upfront on JoyNews. I'm Winston Amma, and today our focus is on the Integrated Customs Management System. Many of you call it UNIPAS, and so we have the Project Implementation Chairman, that's Gilbert Ohene, joining us. And so we're talking about the planned parallel running of the system, or concurrent for some time, more like you know, facing out of the other. So what happened on the 28th of April? People couldn't clear their goods.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, there was some correspondence sent to the incumbent vendors and other stakeholders from the Office of the Commissioner General, directing that activities in port clearance should run concurrently till the 31st of May. And on the morning of the 28th, when some agents attempted to access their systems, what they saw was that they had the information that they should run in the icons, and that the existing vendors had made that input in their systems, and so they could not continue with their activities. That's exactly what happened.
Now, when you issued the letter, beyond the letter, did you engage them?
I know it was some engagements were made, but it was at the top levels.
So the Commissioner General engaged them?
I have said at the top levels. I cannot tell you for certainty that the Commissioner General or ABC or D did engage them, but I know for certain that some engagement must have been made.
So I'm just curious. That's not, I mean, but I know this is not a question you should be answering. Maybe you found out. So if you sent these letters to them and there were engagements, why did they shut down then?
I cannot answer that question because I would not be able to speak for those who shut down their system.
Have you found out, I'm asking whether you found out why they shut down?
Well, I know for a fact that they had indicated that the agent should refer to, what do you call it, a directive from government. That is what had been indicated in their front end.
But they should refer to a directive from government.
Yes.
What directive from government?
I am not in any position to say that because I do not know about that directive.
You're the chairman of the implementation committee.
Yes, I am.
You are to see to the successful implementation of the system.
Yes.
And in seeing to the successful implementation of the system, you are to see to the smooth running of the system in the ports. So anything that makes the system not run should be of concern to you.
I certainly admit that.
So how come this particular issue, which should be of concern to you, you haven't found out more about it?
I have not said I haven't found out.
But you haven't told me what happened.
Yes, I am saying that on the in the morning of the 28th of May, the agencies that are responsible for clearance, in accessing their systems, were told they should process in the ICOMs. Okay, they said government directive. Now, as far as I'm concerned, some engagements have been made with those agencies, the incumbent vendors. Okay, even though I am the chairman of the committee, there are levels of responsibility that is reposed in people's positions. Okay, and so for those areas where there was a need to know, I would be in a position to make comments on that. But where there was no such information available to me, it would not be prudent to make any guess.
I'm just curious, are we running different kind of systems? So you as project implementation committee chairman, there are certain directives that you're not aware of?
We are working with a committee that we've been given specific mandates as to what to do. Okay, now there are levels of responsibility, I have said, even concerning the committee. The committee is not does not work in isolation, and we report to our managers, the top management of customs, who now also report up the hierarchy.
And so, yes, finally on this bit, the top management of customs which you report to, when directives are given to them, do they give you those directives?
In issues where we need to have clarity and certainty, yes, we do know.
Not in all issues are you giving information?
I just mentioned that there are issues where there is a need to know, and there are issues where we are given the clear and specific directives. Okay, with these letters coming from the Commissioner General, I can speak comfortably to them because it's my immediate boss. Yeah.
Okay. But there's some issues that also do not come from there. But in moving forward, so now we know that they're currently working,
yes.
And they are supposed to finish their work by the 31st of May.
From the letter that has originated from the Commissioner General, yes.
But we also told that later a meeting with vendors, GCNet and West Blue, we hear that they've been giving, that's GCNet and West Blue, have been giving some 3 months to wrap up, and they will be finally shut down.
I do not have this information.
You don't have it?
No, I don't.
So you would go and find out when you live here?
Yes, I will.
But has there ever been any meeting between these persons that you're aware of? After the letter?
After the letter, I have not been party to any such meeting. Yeah.
What was the last meeting you held with them?
Let me explain that in the engagement with the vendors, it is not at the level of the implementation committee.
Okay.
So we need to understand that very clearly, that, as I said, there are levels of responsibility. our responsibility is to ensure that we can deploy the systems. The other responsibilities of engagement with the respective vendors is at the level of the top management of GRA.
Per your plan, when will the system be implemented fully?
We have made a lot of progress in Tema and at the airport and nationwide. And so we are working with the deadline that the Commissioner General instructed us to work with, and that's the 31st of May.
So by 31st May, this is supposed to run fully and all other vendors will be out of the post.
I haven't said that. I have said that we are working with the document where the Can I finish?
Yes, finish.
Because the Commissioner General has instructed that we should process till the 31st of May. If there are reviews to be made, it's at their level to make them regarding continuity or truncation.
But I said, so all things being equal. I didn't say you have said, I said all things being equal. Yes, when that day comes, based on the date you're working with this date to ensure that by 31st May, UNIPAS takes over fully.
Based on what we have just said to you, through that letter.
By 31st May, and I'm going to the Western region, would all those challenges be solved?
The idea is to ensure that every challenge that comes up in the deployment, we resolve them immediately. Now, it is a new system that is being introduced. It's important to indicate that every system that is introduced has challenges that go along the way. The fact that they have been introduced does not mean that the challenges are resolved overnight. But every effort is being made to address all the challenges that come along the way. Even when they are deployed, and even in the existing vendors now, they still have challenges that come up in the course of the operations of the activities. Yes, so that will be very presumptuous to say that there will be no challenges anymore after the 31st of May. Challenges in any IT system can come up without anybody's notice.
Gilbert Ohene, thank you very, very much for joining us. So Gilbert Ohene is the chairman of the implementation committee of the Integrated Customs Management System. Many of us call it UNIPAS. That'll be all from us today on Upfront. My name is Winston Amma. Do have a lovely day. Up next is JoyNews Prime.